Okay, so yellow ochre or yellow oxide, or even raw sienna if you don't have yellow ochre. Ultramarine violet in white, and this is for the dark part of the dress, right down in this area here and here. Now I see a bit of green because of course the reflection in certain areas you can see a hint of red in here and a hint of green in here. And that's because of the stems and because of that red shawl on this side. So what we can do is glaze this part later on. So I'm gonna mix ultramarine violet, a bit of yellow ochre in it. That makes my ultramarine violet more grayish. And I'm putting a touch of white in there. Okay, let's do that. Because of that yellow ochre, yellow is opposite purple on the color wheel. So what it does is it grays, it makes a gray color, which is perfect for here because that's what I see. I see a bit of purple as well in here. Now I'm gonna let it dry, and if it's not dark enough, I might add raw umber in the darkest parts.
Mine's looking kind of brown, so I should add more purple?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, for sure it should be a bit more purple than the yellow. So I'm just spreading that yellow, this dark a bit right here, although I am going to be highlighting certain areas, but I think it's a good idea to put some of this yellow, some of this dark, keep saying yellow.
Liel, I just want to sort of discern the color that you're using. I know what you've put together, but is that like a silvery looking or gray?
It's more like a cool purple gray.
Like a purple gray.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes
yeah,
it's hard to discern the color over the
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a purple gray.
a purple gray.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome.
It's a bit transparent though, right?
Transparent over here where I'm doing this, but no, it's not transparent right here.
Okay.
It is kind of. It's not like because I'm putting water in it, right? It's not like just I'm using just the color just the way it is. I'm putting a bit of water in there. See, any area where you are seeing a hint of a difference in value, a mid-tone right here, a bit of mid-tone in there. If you look at the reference carefully, you will see a change in the value. You need to prepare that. You need to prepare that area, because if we start putting highlights only, it's going to be flat. We're not going to get anything. So we need to prepare the areas where we see a change in the fold or in the value. And even if it's like a very soft, light initial color in there, transparent, it doesn't have to be harsh. Okay, that's good. So it's the same. We're using yellow ochre, ultramarine violet, a touch of cerulean blue, especially with the yellow ochre, to get that greenish kind of color in the dress. Very light pastel green, and titanium buff. And I added, of course, ultramarine violet. When I mix the yellow ochre and the cerulean blue, very small amount of cerulean blue, I got an earthy green color. I added a touch of ultramarine violet in there and a lot of titanium buff for my first layer. And let's see how it goes. I'm using a flat brush. For now, I'm going to change that in a minute. So this is for first layer. It's a good dark color. I'm going to be highlighting after. So for now, it's very, it's perfect, this color.
Mhm.
I'm moving my brush with the movement of the dress, kind of. So if the dress is round, this area here is more roundish, I'm doing the same movement, trying to get the same. Okay. I will be darkening this area in a minute. This is giving me a very good idea on how where my highlights should be, and in a minute I will be adjusting all of these highlights and darks. Okay, so now I have a good idea where my darks and lights should be. I can go back now and adjust all of this. Adjust my values, lights and darks. Okay, that's a good start. All right. Good. Let's take smaller brush, round, small brush. Okay, and right here. Okay. Excellent. So now I have a good idea of the actual color of the dress. I'm going to do another layer, same yellow ochre, touch of cerulean blue in there to give me that dark green. And I'm going to increase the amount of ultramarine violet in here. So no white, come here, and again, if I find that by the time it's dry, it's not dark enough, I'm going to add, I might go and add raw umber in there, because there are some areas that need to be really dark in here.
No? Yeah.
So there's no white here now. All I'm doing is I am really darkening this area, and again, wait for it to dry and see how, if it needs to be darker. And then if it needs to go darker than this, then yes, raw umber has to be added. Shadows are not opaque. They have different values in them too, in the shadow. They look opaque, but they're not.
Mhm.
They're actually transparent.
Yeah.
Because if you look closely at the dress, you can see where this area here, if you look at the actual reference, you can see the folds in there, in the shadow, in the dark shadow. You can see you can still see the folds.
Mhm.
I'm softening those highlights that I put in there, in that area. Okay, so this needs to go down because that's the shape of this highlight in here is important. So I'm going to soften this as well. And then I will highlight again, put the strong highlight in this area later on. So for now, I'm adjusting all of my shadows. And I'm trying to use right now the leftover dark I have on my brush. So the darks I have are more like a dry brush. Okay. This is dry brush. And I'm using just the tip of my brush. Ay, yeah. Okay, I added a touch of titanium buff into that strong dark that I'm using, just because I want a dark color in here, but I don't want it to be too strong. So I kind of made it softer. I made my dark color softer by adding titanium buff. Especially with folds, you need kind of three kinds of values: light, medium, and dark.
Kind of like doing those curtains you did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Any fabric fold is the same technique. I'm softening all of that dark that I have in there by using the darks that I started with, adding titanium buff, making them a bit lighter, and a bit of water. Wipe my brush, because this, when I wipe my brush, I can control the color, and it will dry. It will not be a heavy, strong color or paint on my brush when I dry my brush a bit. All right. By the time this is dry, if I find that this is too light, I can go back and glaze it when it's dry. I can glaze it with raw umber or with a combination of yellow ochre, cerulean, bit of cerulean blue, and ultramarine violet, but a glaze, not heavy. But for now, I'm just going to let it dry because I still have to highlight more. I'm going to stop for now. So right now I'm using titanium buff and white, mixing those two colors together. I'm making my color, I'm dipping the tip of my brush in water. So I don't want my color to be too strong, too heavy, the paint. And wiping a bit my brush as well, just to make sure that I don't have too much paint.
Yeah, was warm white good as well? Because sometimes
Yeah, yeah,
warm
warm
white
white.
and
Warm white is good too. Yes.
So this is more white. It's pretty bright, is it?
Yeah. It's gonna dry darker anyway, so. And now I'm just using leftover from my brush. Okay. Let's do this part. All right. I can see here that these folds, the lines in between the folds are too sharp. So I'm going to just camouflage one of them a bit. This is going to require one more layer of highlights. This layer is not enough because my color is not thick, my paint. So I am kind of glazing, trying to glaze softly. Okay, let's glaze the bottom part.
My husband's making a lot of noise opening a case of beer. I told him to stop.
We can't hear him.
They can't hear you making all that noise with the beer.
I'm not going to.
He's not going to do it anymore.
No, enjoy your beer.
He just got a new one. He likes to drink that Belgian white. It's like a wheat beer, and I do as well. And he can't get it in the smaller cans because the bigger cans you drink too much, right? So he's bought a new kind of beer. So we'll see.
I've been drinking non-alcoholic beer.
Yes, we drink that too. We buy the Loblaws brand. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. There, Metro has a nice one too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's refreshing.
Mhm.
The thing about glazing is that you need to keep on adjusting the color when it's dry. Again, white, titanium buff, and a bit of water in here. So I'm using a stronger highlight now, and a bit stronger. Yep. I don't want to lose the folds. So I'm trying to highlight slowly, making sure that I'm watching where the folds are. Okay. Every time I finish one part of this painting, I say to myself, "Oh, this is the hard part. Next one is going to be easier," and it's not. Not getting any easier. There. Just going to add a bit more white in this area here, just this area there. Because the dress goes down in here, and then when it goes down, further down, it's darker. softening these folds in here. Right, okay, let's go down to this part. Okay. Right, so now soften a bit some of these folds. So I'm taking ultramarine violet, mixing it with my titanium buff. That's it. Just ultramarine violet and titanium buff. And making my color, my paint more transparent. So it's like a glaze. So if I need to add a strong fold in there, like a crease in there that's dark, 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 I'm just going to take titanium buff. Make sure that my paint is more in the more like a glaze. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can get away with titanium with ultramarine violet and titanium buff, or should I be adding a bit of raw umber to this? Hmm. Okay. Right. Right. I have raw umber, which I glazed it with water, so it's not heavy. And with the tip of my round brush, I applied this raw umber gently down here. Right above it, I have ultramarine violet, and it's a glaze as well.
On its own, ultramarine violet?
But yes, if you find it too thick, or too dark, add a bit of titanium buff to it. So it's not harsh. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to start from the dark and come to the light softly. So to come to that light softly, you need a mid-tone, and the mid-tone shouldn't be harsh, right? So I added now, actually, to answer your question, I added a bit of titanium buff to my ultramarine violet. I wipe my brush, and then now I'm going to try to blend these two together. From raw umber to ultramarine violet should be a soft blend in there. And then I'm going to take titanium buff with a bit of white, wipe my brush, and try to blend. So the transition from dark to medium to light there's no harsh line. If this can be done, it's fantastic. I know it's not easy, but with a bit of practice, it should work. Now, I did not clean my brush from the titanium buff. I dipped my brush in raw umber. So I'm getting a soft, darker color. And I'm trying to blend a bit my colors in here. That's very hard with acrylics, very hard. Okay, adding a bit of white or titanium buff, wipe my brush, blend this, blend. There, I'm gonna get a really kind of nice soft transition. See, look at this one here. From here to here, it's flat. So I'm gonna take titanium buff mixed with a bit of raw umber, and it's a glaze. And I'm gonna put a soft fold in here. Again, acrylic dries darker, so by the time it's dry, I can adjust my darks. If I find that the raw umber is too strong, I can just kind of glaze it with a bit of titanium buff and a touch of raw umber in there. Yeah, that's good. I'm adding a bit of raw umber with my titanium buff and softening this here. No matter what I do, I have to wait for the paint to dry and see how sharp and dark it is so I can adjust it. It's a constant adjustment with acrylics, especially for these details. And take a bit of raw umber mixed with titanium buff, make it transparent, so a glaze. Wipe my brush, come here. Maybe a bit more titanium buff in there. more like a glaze. Okay, highlight. I'm mixing right now. I'm taking some of the white and titanium buff in here and then just highlighting a bit this area down here. So when I was mixing my colors in here or highlighting this area, I lost some of the folds. So I'm going to take, again, raw umber, titanium buff, make my raw umber transparent. It's a glaze. My raw umber and titanium buff as a glaze. And I'm going to come here and add some folds softly in here. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. Wipe my brush, blend. I find the best thing to do when we're using when we're working with acrylics is if we're doing something like that, which is like folds, glazing is the best thing to do. Glazing because it's not harsh. It's a soft kind of color. It's not opaque. Oop. Okay. So now I'm going to zoom out. And good. Okay. Again, I'm going to wait for it to dry. I think we're okay. Areas like these here, where you see the fold, but in between those two folds, these two here, it's a very, very soft light, dark, very soft dark. So what I'm going to do is play with the highlights instead of darkening or highlighting this area here. Put a bit more highlights on this area here. So let's take a bit white, just white. This is just white right now. All I'm doing is I'm just adding the strong highlight where I see it. Um, I'm using raw umber, and I am just putting some glaze of the shadow of the dress on her skin. Just a bit.